Hello. Looks like we have some people here joining our master class. Can you guys all hear me okay?
Hey, everyone.
You can hear
Morning.
me. All right. So we'll just give it a few more minutes and let everyone enjoy here.
Corey's on. Hey, Corey.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Ready for our master class here.
All right.
All right.
Me too.
All right. So I can actually just get started right away, or we can
let's
just
get into
wait
it.
another minute. Should we get started?
Yeah, I think we should start with our introductions and give it a couple, go a little slow, let a couple people log on, and then get going.
All right. Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you here for today's Rover Master Class on Accounts Receivable module. I am Corinne, Project Manager at Zoom Assist, and I'll be guiding us through the session today along with three fantastic team members. We have Stephanie, our senior staff accountant. She'll be walking us through live demos with real practical, real world examples using our accounts receivable module. And Kathy is our senior software developer, and she is our Rover ERP expert, everything Rover, and she is supporting us on how to use the system more efficiently. So we hope to bring some tips and tricks along the way as we navigate through an accounts receivable module. And towards the end of our session here, we'll have Greg join us. He's the lead software developer, and he will be showcasing some features with our Rover web portion within customer portal and how AR ties into the Rover ERP desktop client. And so that'll be exciting towards the end. We have developed this class, Stephanie, Kathy, and myself, based on real support issues and tickets that we have received from end users. So these things that we present within the next 30 to 45 minutes will be covering inputting deposits, applying prepayments, writing off invoices, making use of our batch entry process, which will hopefully streamline things and reduce error along the way while we're entering these deposits. Also reversing transactions, which was a few tickets we had received through support, as well as reviewing miscellaneous entries. So with those topics we'll be covering, we hope to bring some efficiency to your day, maximize your experience within the Rover ERP. So that's what we'll be covering today. And just to note, our next master class will be hosted October 16th, and it will be all things sales. So put that in your calendar. That's going to be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time. So October 16th, all things sales. So without further ado, I think we can just dive right in, Stephanie. We'll talk about our first key topic, which is entering deposits within cash.e. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we can get started on that. And also, please feel free to chat any questions you may have. I'll be monitoring that and we can address some questions you may have.
Okay, cool. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So I'm going to take some time to walk you guys through it along with Kathy. She is going to be kind of guiding me, and we'll work together to kind of give examples and show, just maybe different tips and tricks with each module and each function within it. I just started actually with Zoom Assist in June, so I'm a little bit of a newer Rover user. So I've been so fortunate to have Kathy to just kind of train me and show me a lot of the more technical things that you can do in Rover. So let's get into it. Okay, so Kathy, the first thing we're going to be showing today is the cash.e function. So
Correct.
I will pull it up.
And just on a side note, the screens that we will be covering today are all located in the Accounts Receivable module, and that is another way you can use to navigate to to open up this particular command or any of the commands that we'll be talking about. So cash.e in particular is located under data entry procedures. But
Yep.
like Stephanie just demonstrated, you can type the command in at the command line. And if it's a command you use on a daily basis, you can always add it to your favorites.
Yep. Okay. So as you guys saw, I opened it from typing in cash.e here. And then I can also open it navigating through the menu, and we have cash.e here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the first thing we're going to show today is just a basic cash receipt. So we're going to start just by kind of showing the boxes that are completely necessary to fill out. So we'll tab, actually, Kathy, before we get started, can you walk me through showing people how to change their input box to be a certain color?
Yes. Minimize this screen for me, please. You'll have to, thank you.
Okay.
And then click on File in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Click on Settings. And there's the first change button you see on the screen. If you press that, you will be presented with this dialog box that will give you the different set of colors that you can use as a background color to follow the cursor around. So press Save.
Perfect.
And now reopen cash.e and you will see that yellow.
Yeah, and this I found just super helpful when you're going quickly, doing a lot of data entry. It just helps see where you're at. Okay.
Yeah, really pinpoints, really highlights where you're at. As simple as the feature as that is, it's a helpful thing that I think, a lot of our customers may not know about. So perfect tip to bring up.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the first example we're going to use is our customer. So when you're looking up customer, if you know the customer ID, you can always enter it in, or you can just type one portion of the name and it'll pop up. So here we are. We have this customer here. They have many open invoices. So for this example, we're going to assume that they sent us one check in the mail for $1,080. So moving through, we're going to first click on our cash deposit account. This is necessary. This is, of course, where the money is actually being deposited. There are settings so that this populates with your default account, but it can always be changed if you're depositing things into different accounts. From there, if you just enter down, it's going to populate with the date, the current date. You do need a date in there, and then you also need a check number. So I will enter in the check number, and then I will enter in the payment amount, which we said is going to be $1,080. There's no convenience fee. We don't need a bank number. Kathy, did we need a deposit ID?
If you will be using, we're not going to touch on it in this class, but there is a bank reconciliation screen. So if you will be using it, I would recommend entering a deposit ID. A lot of customers will use the date as the deposit ID. So Stephanie, if you just type in the letter D for me and press enter, it will load in the date for you.
Perfect. Okay, so then we're going to enter this invoice. As you can see, it's populated in the amount applied. And from there, we're just going to save it. Is there anything else, Kathy, for this function?
No,
and it was just, if I could just add, it was just entering through that line item and it automatically populated that amount. So
correct.
Yep, you just clicked on the line item you wanted to apply that amount to. Simple as that.
Yes.
Now we're going to save it, and we've created 856 cash ID. So then if we wanted to view it again, we can just enter in 856, and now we can see where we received this check.
Do me a favor, Stephanie.
Sure.
And press the new button. And right mouse click on the cash ID field.
Okay.
And By doing this, you are opening up a dialog box that gives you different lookups to find a particular cash ID if you don't know it. So choose the check number lookup for me and type in 1234 and press OK. So we have entered 2 cash transactions for that check number for different customers. If you select it, the first one on the list, it will load it in for you.
Okay, perfect. That's very cool. So I think, Kathy, maybe you can walk us through some of the help functions in this screen that can help with guiding us through.
Okay, so one thing I think proves very helpful is type in 856 for me again. There is a history function that exists on a lot of screens. So if you click on that for me and view changes, and I do apologize, I don't think we've set this up completely in the demo account. So let's just close out of here and pretend I didn't try to show you this.
Well, I still think it's a great thing to mention. I know as a end user myself for over
We
10
will
years.
get to that at another time.
Okay. But change history
But
is,
one thing,
yeah.
oh,
sorry.
sorry,
No,
go
I
on,
was just
Corinne.
mentioning change history is a great feature. It does, yeah. It's a good feature to refer back to as far as any users going into certain entries and changing. So we'll definitely go back to that. But
Yes.
Yeah.
it was a great field to mention. Yeah.
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 And it will be set up on your systems. So do me a favor, click on help at the very top of the screen.
Okay.
So I have found that not all customers are aware of this. If you click on procedure, this will give you more information about the procedure itself. And every command in the system will have some information in this field. So if you have any questions about the purpose of the screen or how certain function options work within the screen, this is one of the first places you want to look at. In addition to that, and you can press OK. Now, or X, yes. Every field will have its own field help. So do me a favor, Stephanie, put the cursor in the invoice number field.
Invoice number field.
Right after the line number.
Okay.
And press, okay. So in addition to the field help, you also have a number of lookup options, but you also have this open with option. And you will have that available from any field, which is the key to another file. So a customer number field, a part number field, a GL account number field. So click the open with option for me. And this will give you a list of commands that are keyed by the invoice number or ARID. So let's select the highlighted one, AR.E. And this
Cool.
opens up the invoice entry screen.
Yeah.
And in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, we can see where that cash payment was applied.
Mm-hmm.
And since we paid the full amount, the status has been changed to P for posted, and the balance on the invoice due is 0.
Very cool. And something great about the procedure help here is sometimes especially as a new user, you're kind of sifting through the menu screens and you're looking for procedures or processes that might help you accomplish whatever you're trying to do. So it is great that you can open each one and you can look at the help, read the procedure, and see if that's what you're trying to do. I found that really useful, especially my first couple months using Rover. Okay,
Good.
cool. So that's just the basic cash.e entry. And then what we're going to move on to do is we're going to show you guys how to apply a prepayment. So you might receive a prepayment for any number of reasons. One of the common ones is customers pay annually or monthly, and they have, their own schedule of when they make payments, and they submit a payment to you that you have not yet processed an invoice for. So we're just going to go through a quick example of how to apply a prepayment on account.
And
So I
perfect
will-
timing. Perfect timing. I believe we had someone who had questions about prepayment. So as we're jumping into it, we're hitting it right on the money. So it's good.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to do this also in cash.e. I'm going to pull up one of my customers, Billy Johnson. Okay, so Billy Johnson sent us in a check for $1,000. They have this open invoice from 2023, and their check that they sent in, let's say it didn't reference this check number. We're not sure what they're paying us for. So we already deposited the check, and we want to hold it on account. So we're going to go through a very similar process. We're going to just tab through all of these. We're going to enter a check number, the payment amount, and we're going to tab through. And from here, Kathy, do you want to just guide me on what we enter in this section?
Yes, so put the cursor in the next available line number field.
Okay.
And enter the number 2.
Okay.
And then just press enter until you get to the amount applied field.
Okay.
We're going to do 2 examples here. Type in 1,000.
Okay.
And press enter. After you press enter, you will notice that the type is set to OA, which is short for on account. And when this record is saved, the system will create a credit memo for the customer. So do me a favor, Stephanie, and save this record. And you will notice that it created AR item OA 267. So if you were to create another on account or record another prepayment for this customer or any customer, the next AR ID would be OA 268. So press OK for me.
Okay.
And let's create one more example here. So just
Okay.
press enter.
All
And
right,
use the same customer number.
Back to Billy Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. Same account, same post date. We're not going to use any check number because we're going to show how to apply this payment to the existing invoice, right, Kathy?
Actually, before we do that, I want to show one other thing. So
Okay.
just enter check number 1234 again.
Okay.
And press enter. And enter 1,000 again. And put the cursor in the next available line number field.
Okay.
And put the cursor in the invoice number field. If you want, you can assign the invoice number yourself. You do not have to let the system assign it. So let's say this prepayment was a prepayment against a sales order. You might make the invoice number something like SO123, and 123 being the actual SO ID. And now press enter until we get to the amount applied and type in 1,000 again.
Okay.
And save it, please. And just press save. And you'll see that the new AR item is created. And you can open up both of those credits in AR.E, and they will appear on the customer's account. You will see them in cust.q. You will see them in the aging report. And now, like Stephanie said, we're going to do one more cash transaction to apply the prepayment to the open invoice.
Okay, so we're going to select the same customer. Same date, same cash account. We're not depositing anything, so it doesn't matter what we use. And then for check number, we are just going to put OA from
Application.
account. Oh,
Perfect.
application. Thank you. Oh. Okay. And 0 for the payment amount. Is that right, Kathy, or do we put 1,000?
No, it's 0.
Okay. Because we're not receiving any money in. Okay, and then from there, Kathy, I believe I'm just going to be selecting this invoice. Actually,
And put the cursor in the amount, we're not in the amount applied field for line number 1.
Okay.
And type in 560.
Okay.
And now put the cursor in line number 2 and change that to a credit of 560.
There we go.
And so it still leaves us with an open credit amount on their system for that invoice, but we are basically paying it down by $560. So do me a favor and save the record.
Okay.
And
How did you just save that so quickly, Stephanie? Did you use a shortcut?
I did. I just used Control S.
Okay. Love those short keys. Control S to save, right? I think Control N for new screen if you want to just use your keyboard. Forget you have a mouse. So that's good. I saw you did it. Thought it was worth it.
So sorry, on that note, F9 is another shortcut to saving a record. That's the one I use all the time.
Oh.
F9. Oh,
F9,
okay.
the fun, yeah,
That's cool.
the very top of the keyboard.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so we're back here. We applied our payment. I think we should pause here. Does anyone have any questions about receiving deposits on account or applying them to prepayments or applying them to invoices? I know when I figured out how to do this, I thought it was pretty cool that it was this simple to just work through the modules to apply payments and cash receipts. So
yeah. So we have Hong has a question. So let's go ahead and allow Mike there. Is that working?
Hello?
there we go.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay. All right. I do have a question. I don't know if you're gonna cover that next or not, but we also have, besides the customer deposits, we also have the non invoice deposits. We call it miscellaneous deposits, where we don't apply it to the customer's account. We put it into a GL, a specific GL account.
That's great. We're actually going to cover that in today's agenda too. So this is perfect.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get to that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Happy we're really touching on some topics because I believe, was it Greg that also had a question about prepayments? So we just covered that and we'll get moving on the agenda too.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get going. So we entered deposits, we applied prepayments. Next, let's write off an invoice. So I'm going to create a new screen, and we're going to use our company Lordco. That's interesting. We should have an invoice here. Let's see. Let's use another one. Let's write off one of the invoices for City of Del Mar instead. Okay. So just a little bit of, real life, when would you use this function, right? This is something that you're going to use when you have an outstanding invoice that you should collect, for all intents and purposes, the customer does owe you the money. There's no credit that is actually issued or that should be issued. They're not owed a credit, but just maybe this customer went out of business. This customer is refusing to pay even though they used your services, something like that. That's kind of the situation where you would use this function. So, if it is an error on, your end where you do need to credit them, you would just create a credit memo. But this is specific for kind of those transactions or those situations where you are owed the money, but you're not gonna collect it. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to.
And this is writing off invoices, essentially, right? Writing off invoices, like you mentioned, due to bad debt. Okay. Yep.
That's right. Okay, so we're also in cash.e. We're gonna flow through our screens again. We're gonna do post date, check number. We're gonna do bad debt, payment amount. Let's say actually, Kathy, we don't need a payment amount, correct? Because we're writing this off.
Correct.
Okay.
It will be 0.
It will be 0. Okay. So then from here, once we get to the bottom, let's say that this invoice 13939, they are not paying. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this amount here and our 1080, and we are actually just going to place it in the write-off amount. Now, once we hit enter, a screen is going to pop up that shows the different GL accounts that you might have associated with bad debt. So you would choose whichever one is most relevant to the situation. So for this instance, I'm going to choose provisions for bad debt. I think from here, Kathy, do you want to just walk us through AR control and how we choose those accounts to pop up?
Yes, please minimize cache.e.
Okay.
And let's open up AR.control, which is the second command in the module.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's a field towards the bottom of the screen for your write-off account numbers. And you'll notice that there is a scroll bar associated to those accounts. So that means you can have an almost unlimited number of write-off accounts entered in this control record. You only have 2 at the moment, which is why it's grayed out, but you can have more than that. And if you want to delete any of these accounts to prevent them from being used in the future, you would just come into AR.control and press the F12 function key to delete it and save the record.
Cool. Perfect. So that's kind of where you keep those accounts. And the reason you might want to have these under control is just because, especially if you're a big company and there's a lot of people doing transactions, you just want to make sure that these write-offs are being booked to the correct account. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So now we'll come back here. We're just going to save it. We're going to say yes. And this has been saved. So now if we look it up again.
Yes. And,
Yep.
and do me a favor and put the cursor in the write-off amount field.
Okay.
And right mouse click. And select that option. And just expand the screen. So if you ever want to know what account was used on an existing transaction, this is how you can find it.
Yep, and it'll show it right here. And then Kathy, just to confirm, if you wanted to change this, you would actually have to reverse the transaction, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Which is something we'll get into very soon. Okay,
yes.
So moving on from there, the next function we're going to show is our cache.e4. So cache.e4 is basically cache.e, but it's used for batch entries. So I find this super helpful. I use it every day when we receive checks in the mail and then we take them to the bank. It's a great way to enter in all your deposits all at once without having to save every single one. And then it also helps just kind of the control of what you write on your deposit slip versus what you're putting in Rover. It's just another way to kind of double check your totals. So I'm going to close out of cash.e. Back here on my accounts receivable data entry process screen, I'm going to select cash.e4, which is batch entry procedure for cash transactions.
So this batch entry, Stephanie, we could type in multiple cash entries, so saving time and also possibly even reducing errors just from one entry point, right? So we have some efficiency there. So cash.e is a single entry. This is a batch entry for multiple.
That's correct.
Great.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Okay, so the example I'm going to go through is say I get my checks in the mail and they total $4,806.65. So I've calculated them on my own. And before I write it on the deposit slip, I'm going to enter it into here just to make sure I didn't error anything. So I'm going to enter my deposit amount here. This batch amount will calculate as you enter checks that have been received. So you'll see once you've completed it, your batch amount will equal your deposit amount. So I'm going to scroll down. Again, this is very similar to cash.e. Let's see, I'm going to put in a couple of the checks that I received. So my first company is, Ampex. Okay, and it's Ampex. Nope, not that Ampex.
It was the Redwood City. We had
Ampex Corp. There we go. Okay, so we have our cash amount, our deposit date, our check number, and our check amount is going to be $3,500. Enter, and I'm going to select this first invoice, and you'll see the amount applied, $3,500. The batch amount so far is $3,500. Now, in order to get to the next cash entry, we're going to just scroll down. You can click the arrow once. Okay, now we're going to do our next customer. It's going to be Evans. Evans Supplies. And again, cash account, post date, check number, check amount is going to be, let's see, 226.65. So here I have two invoices that I'm going to be selecting. This one right here for $100. And then I'm going to be selecting this one right here for $126.65. Perfect. My balance to apply is 0. You see that it's been entered up here. We're going to scroll down once more to enter in one more check. Okay, and we have City of Del Mar again, our post date, our check number, our check amount is going to be $1,080, and we're going to select this check to apply it to. Okay, so from my screen, I see, yes, I entered in all 3 of my checks that I received, and you can see that my batch amount equals my deposit amount. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually save it. And what you'll see is that there's not a batch cash entry created. It actually creates cash records for each individual check. So what that means is that it's basically doing the same function that cash.e is by splitting it up by each check number. There's no way to go in and kind of see like what batch you did. Does that make sense? Kathy, Corinne, does
Yes.
that make sense?
It makes total sense. And
Okay.
if you needed to view any of the transactions that were just created, you can open them up in cash.e. And as we're about to see, if you need to reverse them, you have a way to do that.
Yeah, okay. So that's basically the only thing that's different about cash.e4. It's just a batch entry process. So moving on from this, like Kathy said, from here, we're going to show how to reverse transactions. So reversing transactions, sometimes I'm trying to think of a good example of when you would use this. If you make any kind of mistake in your AR entry or in your cash entry, if maybe you receive an ACH deposit that looks like it's for one customer, but then you find out it's actually for another customer after you've entered it, this is the process that you would take to reverse it. So again, we're here at the Accounts Receivable Data Entry Procedures screen, and we're going to use cash.e2. And you can see here it says reverse a cash entry.
And this was definitely one of those items that we had multiple support tickets on, which was just how to reverse a cash posting or an entry. So
yeah, I think one of those tickets was from me too. Okay, so I grabbed one of the cash IDs from the deposits I just made. So I am going to post it here. So you do need to know what cash ID you are trying to reverse before you run this function. You can find that in your cus.q file. That's probably the easiest way, or if you have it, written down any other way. So I'm just going to.
Stephanie,
Yes.
so sorry. Just like cash.e, you will have the same set of lookups if you right mouse click.
You're right.
good
So
to
we can
mention.
So
look
you
at
can also use those to find it.
Okay, let's use
So if you
this
do
one
like the
then.
check number, yeah.
We'll look up City of Del Mar. Oh, and there's lots of them. So let's pick the one from today, our most recent. Okay, here we go. So with this process, everything will stay the same. Kathy, do you want to just touch a little bit on register date and how you can use this to kind of reverse the same transaction that was maybe locked up in a period, how to reverse it in a current period?
So you will not be able to reverse a cash transaction that has been cleared. You will not be able to reverse a transaction that falls into a closed fiscal period. So if, for example, so as Stephanie mentioned, all the information from the original transaction is loaded into the screen. And let's say that this transaction was originally made in August and that fiscal period had been closed and you don't want to reopen the period. What you would do is you would change the register date to a September date, which means you will see the money going into the account in August and coming out in September.
Yeah.
Because
So I thought
it is the register date, and you will see references to the register date in both payables and receivables in a number of different screens. And it is the register date that is used to post entries to the general ledger.
Yeah, and on that note, one thing I just want to mention is that working through these screens is so beneficial, just to really keep kind of the accounting techniques working in your favor. So I know there's a lot of people, probably some people on this call, where cash receipts is not your only job. You might not even be an accountant. You might wear a lot of different hats at your company. And so kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of closed periods and reversing transactions and journal entries and stuff like that, when you do work through these modules, it kind of takes away the thinking and having to figure out, what's the technical accounting that I need to do. And it kind of forces you to follow the steps and keep the books clean this way. So it's really beneficial, learning these entries learning these modules versus just, using a journal entry every time you need to reverse something or make a change. It really kind of holds a lot of the integrity of the data and the work that you're doing. So just something good to note. So
Great
moving
point,
on.
If I may interject, we have Jeanette who asked a question, and I'm not sure how to answer that just yet. But she's saying, if using a deposit ID, will it group all checks as on total amounts on the bank reconciliation?
A deposit ID. So is that for the cash.e4 entry?
The batch entries, I
The batch
believe
entry?
that's kind of
That's
what.
great. That's a great question. Kathy, from my experience, I've seen that if checks are received all on the same day, it might batch them. Do you know that if we use, let's see, I'll just navigate to the cash.e4 real quick, and then we'll come back.
As on total amount on the bank reconciliation, because I know it made multiple IDs from that batch, right? So does it show as a total on the bank reconciliation?
Yeah, that's not something I'm totally sure of. Kathy,
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've had any experience with that either.
So if cash.e4, like cash.e, has the deposit ID filled.
Mm-hmm.
So if an entry, so in answer to Jeanette's question, it's yes.
Okay.
So you're right, Stephanie, on the bank reconciliation screen, it will sum them up by date. But if you use deposit IDs on a given date, then it will break those deposits out by ID and then by date.
Got it. Okay.
So
Great.
if
Great
you
question,
have
though.
two separate, okay, so do me a favor, finish up with your example, and
Okay.
then we're going to go back to cash.e for a moment, because I want to show you something.
Okay. Let's.
And we also have one more question pending. So I know we're trying to meet in a time too. I think this is just a really, did we want to allow Hong, if you had a question?
Yeah, let's just wrap up with this example, and then we
Okay.
just have one more, and we'll definitely have some time for questions after. I'm happy to just reopen the screens and kind of run through any clarifications we need to. Does that sound good?
Good idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank-
Okay.
Yes.
So cash.e2, reversing and AR cash posting. We have our cash ID here that we want to reverse. Really, unless we're changing the register date, the only thing we have to do here is save it. So this is also another way to save. I'm going to click the save button. 864 has been filed in the cash file. Kathy, is the best way to see this reversal in the cus.q for City of Del Mar?
Cus.q or AR.e. So we've shown him AR.e. Let's go to cus.q.
Okay, so we're going to minimize this. We're going to go to cus.q. Okay, we're going to type in City of Del Mar. We're going to go to
Just
our
in case-
AR activity. Oh, yep.
And I was just say, for our newer customers on the call, cus.q is a very helpful screen. It has a lot of information about the customers, including AR activity, which Stephanie's about to show you.
Okay. So here we are at AR activity, and we can come back right down here to our invoice number, and we see this check being received. And then we also see our reversal right here. And then if I, let's see, Kathy, how do I open up? Oh, I guess I would open it up in the invoice number. If I open up the invoice.
And using that open with shortcut there.
Yes.
Okay.
Then here I can see our cash ID number, our first cash receipt, and then I can also see the reversal, and you'll see that this invoice is still open.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So,
So that's completing reversing transactions.
Yep, so that's reversing.
Yeah.
What's
I'm
that?
so sorry. Can I take us back to cash.e for just a second?
So
Sure.
many fun things to talk about.
Cash, yeah, cash.e, okay.
And bring up 863.
Okay.
So this was one of the transactions that was entered in cash.e4. And in cash.e4, we did not enter a deposit ID, which is why nothing is populated in that field.
Mhm.
Now, if you need to make a change to the invoice numbers that were paid, you do have to reverse the transaction and re-enter it. But if you want to change like the cash account, the post date, or the deposit ID or notes, you can do that without reversing it. So Stephanie, do me a favor and put the cursor in the deposit ID field. Just type in the letter D. Press enter. And save the record. And you will find more information in the procedure help about what fields can be updated on an existing record without having to reverse it.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So that is how we add in the deposit ID. And typing in D and enter is just a little shortcut. If you type in D and enter it, it'll populate with the current date. So that's a cool, quick shortcut.
Correct. And I don't know if anybody was noticed this, but as Stephanie was doing her earlier examples in Cash.e, we did that on the first transaction, and the deposit ID followed into every subsequent transaction that we created. So you don't have to type it in every time in your existing session.
Oh, the
If you were to
post-date
close
meeting?
Cash.e and reopen it, then you would have to type it in again.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So that is reversing a transaction. We have one last item to share. So I'm going to close out of Cash.e, and we are going to make our way to Cash.e3, which is the miscellaneous cash entry. So I am still in my accounts receivable data entry procedures menu. I'm going to select Cash.e3. And so this is the function that you would use to receive miscellaneous cash. So I'm sure everyone uses this a little bit differently based on the function of your business. One way that I have found this useful is when we kind of receive those annual healthcare reimbursements. It doesn't, health insurance companies usually refund a portion of the deductibles that are not used for like actual services. So it doesn't really apply to anything specific. It's not money you're expecting to get back, so you have no AP item for it. It's just money that you bring that gets deposited into you either in a check or ACH, and you have to record it. So I'm just going to walk through kind of the different fields that you have to fill out and go from there. So post date is going to be the date you receive it. Customer ID, you can add in a customer here if it corresponds to a customer. You can look up a customer here, or you can just type them in. Depending on whether or not it's for a customer. In my example, this is not for a customer, it's actually from a vendor. So I'm just going to type in the name field. Does not populate, it's just an open field that you can type in whatever you need to. So let's say there is a check number, and let's say our refund amount is $10,000. We're just going to make sure that our cash deposit account is the account that we are depositing this check into. And then from there, we're going to go here. So you can choose whatever account you want to apply this payment to. In my example, we're going to be applying it to a healthcare account. So I would take this $10,000 and I would allocate it by department. So I'm going to come here. I have a couple different accounts for each of my departments. So let's say, this refund applies to, these 3 accounts. So I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to put in $5,000 here. I'm going to come here and do 2,500 here. And of course, I'm just making up these numbers. You would apply them however you see fit. Nothing, no. Okay, so then we have it all here. So as you can see, you can actually use different account numbers and do your split however is appropriate for you. Kathy, is there anything I'm forgetting on this screen that might be worth mentioning?
You would still want to populate the deposit ID. for reconciliation purposes. And you might want to make an entry in the notes field explaining why the deposit was received.
Definitely. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so just recording those deposits that aren't necessarily applied against an invoice, right? Too?
Yep,
Yep.
that's exactly.
Correct.
And those refunds and reimbursements. That's great. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So then I'm going to save it. And I have this cash number 867. So of course I could just go 867 and pull it up again. And that's it for cash.e3.
One quick note here, if you need to reverse a transaction made in cash.e3, you would delete it by going to File, Delete. So if you can just show them, yes, I'm not suggesting we do it, but that's how you would do it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so you don't use the reversal function for this. You would just delete it. And if it's out of period, you would just reclass it through journal entry, right?
Or, yes, or again, you could put in a different register date.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's say
So I
you
can,
reverse it in October, you could put in a register date in October, and that would back the money out in the new
and that
month.
would back the money out. Okay, very helpful. Very cool. Okay. Great. So that's cash.e3. And then from there, that's actually kind of concludes our the different items that we were going to share. So, Corinne, do you think we should get
Yeah.
into a time of questions?
I think we can open up to questions and then we'll give Greg the last few minutes to still showcase the web. So I know, Hong, you've been waiting so patiently here. So I'm going to unmute.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So, first of all, is there an audit report or deposit report for that particular deposit from this?
The miscellaneous deposits
Or
for-
any of the, whether it's customer, the deposit or miscellaneous, or for that whole day worth?
Yes. Stephanie, can
Yes.
you minimize or close cash.e3?
Yeah.
And let's get to the reports and inquiry menu.
Okay.
And scroll down until we get to the list of commands beginning with the word cash. So
Okay.
you probably want to start looking at the cash.r1, R2, 3, and 4 reports. I would say cash.r1 is probably the most commonly used report, but cash.r4 will show you the deposits by customer, and then cash.r2 is by deposit ID. Or cash.r3, excuse me.
Very cool.
So do me a favor, Stephanie, open up cash.r1.
Okay.
And run it just for today's date. So if you just type in D, yes.
Cool.
And
Okay. There we go.
And I would
you will
just say
see them.
reports, yeah, reports are endless here in the Rover ERP. Reports are always available. So please, if we're looking for any other reports too, submitting questions to our support email address also, help@zoomassist.com. That'll provide some more assistance as well if we're not able to get to everyone's questions here. But it looks like there's I love that. Derek mentioned he didn't know about the shortcut with the letter D. So I do notice it would be fun to kind of display some short keys that we all love and use. So D for shortcut for date is great. So good question, Hong. Hope yeah.
Okay, another one is, the month end, so when, you said that there's like a possibility of reversals, like cash reversals, so, and we don't wanna mess around with, going to the prior fiscal period or year, whatever it may be. What I do is each month, and I close all the journals, cash, sales, general journal. But once the journal has been closed, um, you shouldn't be able to reverse. Is that correct? And it shouldn't affect the prior period. Is that correct?
Yes, so by changing the registered date, you maintain the previous record in the previous period, and you show a new transaction in the open period in the date that you've changed the registered date to.
So the registered date has to be the next month, not the prior, right?
That's correct.
So
If
let's
your
say if
books are
someone,
closed.
so if someone were to, let's say, accidentally put the prior fiscal period, will it let them go through the transaction, or will it stop them?
It would
It
stop them.
depends.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, it will stop them provided you have closed the fiscal period in the system.
okay, that's good, good to know. Um,
Great questions.
yeah, and finally, sorry.
Yeah.
We're a very unique company where we have some of our customers have like one account, but some of these orders are, let's say they have some orders in company one and some orders are in company two. And they both have the four separate sets of GLs, right? And banks and all that. Now, let's say one customer pays for, some invoices for company one, some invoices for company two. Does this support that? I mean, on a one check, and
Yes,
we have that quite often. Without messing up the
yes.
two companies.
So sorry. Stephanie, do me a favor and open up cash.e. And press enter. So if you are using multiple companies, you have a checkbox. In this case, we only have the one company code set up in this account. But in your case, you would obviously have multiple companies displayed there. So right beneath the company code field, there is a checkbox, match code. If that box is checked, then only the invoices for the selected company code will be loaded into the screen. If it's not checked, then you can apply the payment to the invoices for any company.
Okay, and that's great, and I think that will continue for sure. So thank you, Kathy, for mentioning that. So management of multiple companies and paying on different invoices is definitely possible, right?
Yes.
Okay, great questions. Great questions.
Yes, very good
Okay, so
question.
we could use the last few minutes if we can jump into Greg, if you would like to start showcasing and take over the screen and start showcasing what we have in Rover Web and everything we just saw today and how that relates to our Rover Web product there.
Sure, I would be happy to. Let me share my screen. Does everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we'll quickly jump through both products, both Rover Web and Rover Portal. I'm going to start with Rover Portal just because how great would it be to not have to enter those cash entries yourself? So if you've enabled Rover Portal for your customers to log in, they can make their own payments. So here I'm logged into Rover Portal as a user that's associated with the Evans Supplies company. So here they can see their invoices. They can click to view a PDF of an invoice if they want to view the detail. And then if they wanted to make a payment for that invoice, they can do it right here. So if I click to pay, if the company had credit cards on file, they would show up here that they could choose from existing cards, but we'll go ahead and enter a new one. They can choose to save the card if they want to. I'm going to disable that for the moment and then go ahead and submit the payment. So this number that was given here, that's a cash entry. So if I then go into cash.e and enter 868, the cash entry has already been made. So it's saying that it was paid by Visa. There's the amount. In this case, a convenience fee was added to the charge. That's an optional setting that you can make for Rover Portal-based credit card payments if you want to get back some of your credit card fees. So there, the customer just made the payment. The cash entry was made. You didn't have to touch it at all. So in addition to that, on the Rover web side, there are several different ways that you can both view the open AR items for a customer. So here's our customer inquiry module. We'll go into that same Evans Supplies, and we could go over to the Accounts Receivable section, and we can view all of their open orders or all their open invoices. We can filter by, status. We wanted just to see the outstanding and paid. You can also accept payment on behalf of the customer from here. So if we wanted to pay that same $100 invoice that was showing up for the customer here from the customer inquiry section on Rover Web, we could make a payment on their behalf. Again, if we had cards that were on file and we had permission to pay with those cards, you could do that here, or we could enter a manual card. I'm going to jump around a lot here real quick. There's also the accounting module where you can view receivables. Remove that one. So you can look at different buckets of invoice due dates to see what is due in those time frames. You can also make your own custom range. So if I wanted to do a year-to-date range, I could go back and choose January through today. So that'll add a tab that's year to date. So here are all the invoices in that date range. I could choose to pay one of those if I wanted. So here's an outstanding one. I could click pay. And then again, if cards were on file, I could use one or I could enter a new one. Let me jump to one other section. Our accounting module is still a work in progress. So all the functionality you saw in those various cash screens, that will eventually be available here as well. We've just gotten started on the accounting module, so there's much more to come there. I'll also jump into our point of sale module. That's an area where we have some very robust functionality. So this can be used at a counter where you're entering orders, but maybe a customer comes in and wants to pay an invoice to the person at the counter. So you can search for a customer. We're going to choose Evans Supplies, go to the Invoices tab, and I can load those invoices. You'll see the same invoices here. So here's that same outstanding $100 invoice. I could click there, load that invoice in, choose to continue to payment. Here I can accept payment for more than just credit cards. So if I wanted the customer, maybe the customer is paying with cash. So we can say that they paid that with cash. We'll submit that. And once again, there's our cash entry. So if we went into cash.e, there's our $100 cash payment that was just made. And you didn't have to go enter that in cash.e. It's just done automatically from the payment on the web.
And Greg, just to clarify, the POS, that is like Zoom Assist facing, right? So the POS is something that we would use to collect cash payments, correct? Not something that is part of the client portal,
That's
right?
correct. So there's two web applications here. This is Rover Portal. That's the customer facing side of things. And then here I'm in Rover Web, and this is the POS module, the point of sale module within Rover Web. So this would be an employee facing portion of the application. Okay. But right, this might be used at a counter where you're doing counter sales. Customers are walking in to place orders, but maybe they want to make a payment as well. So we give a quick way to do that through here.
Okay, thank you.
So I know I went very quickly there, kind of jumping around to different areas. Are there any questions?
I think just something to note with the customer portal is, right, we just went through cash.e and all the different functions, and we kind of showed like what our role is, right? But when you look at the customer portal, having this enabled actually means that when your customers are going in and making their payments, they're actually doing all the cash.e entries for you. So since on the back end, it does create that cash.e file, it takes that off of your plate. So, you know, with all the transactions that you have, they would end up just showing up in your bank reconciliation. So it is, you know, really cool that it kind of takes, you know, one task off of your plate of, you know, entering those transactions. So just something to note that you know, I found, you know, helpful and has saved me time is just having our customers work through the portal. So just something kind of cool to know.
Definitely worth noting the lean processing there for sure. Some efficiency we're gaining there. So
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
on Rover Portal, we can accept both credit card and ACH payments or e-check payments if you want to enable that.
Yeah, cool.
All right. I think this was great. I think we had a lot of engagement here. So if there's any more questions, I mean, please feel free to reach out to your local contacts, or again, help@zoomassist.com. We're always here to all help you answer these questions and make sure we can maximize what Rover ERP brings and how we can streamline your day. So Stephanie, Kathy, and Greg, thank you so much. And thank you everyone else. And Corey, do I need to unmute you? Corey, say some last words here. Yep. Okay. So cool. I don't know if I can unmute you, but yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Yep.
Yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, Kathy. We appreciate everything you did. Corinne, you ladies did an amazing job. So thank you.
Oh, thanks everybody for attending.
Yes.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it. It's an honor.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Have a good day.